I'm going to refer.
Maybe that Nima can handle whatever he wants. Four Parshas: Parshas Shkolim, Parshas Zachar, Parshas Parah, and Parshas HaChodesh. And this week, we learn Parshas Parah, in addition to Parshas Vayakel. Parshas Parah is about the process of being metaher oneself from Tumas Meis, the Parah Aduma. But the Svarim tell us that there's a relationship, there's a process that starts with Parshas Shkolim and ends with Parshas HaChodesh. What I'd like to do this week is to describe the Hemshech from Parshas Zachar to Parshas Parah. Even though Parshas Zachar was 2 Shabbosim ago, there's still a Hemshech. Ubeprat, that's Machlokes Rav and Shmuel. When Purim comes out on Erev Shabbos, Rav holds we lay in Parshas Zachar the Shabbos before, but according to Shmuel, last Shabbos was Parshas Zachar, because the Mukafim have Purim that day. So in Shmuel's world, we're going straight from Parshas Zachar to Parshas Parah. The Gemara says in Nida, the Gemara in Daf Tes Amud Aleph in Nida, darshans a pasuk in Iyov. The pasuk says, "Mi'itein tahar mitameh." Who can give tahar from tameh? Who can make tahar come out of tameh? Haloi echad, only the one, only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Gemara brings various perushim of what that's referring to. What is this miracle of tahar mitameh? And finally, the Gemara says that it's the Parah Aduma, Elu Mei Hanida, the Mei Parah Aduma, which are called the Mei Nida, because the halacha is Shehamazeh, the one who sprinkles it, Umazin Olav, and the one who it's sprinkled on, Tahar. They are Tahar. But V'noigeya, but someone who touches it, Tameh, he is Tameh. And the Gemara goes through, what does it mean, the one who sprinkles it? What does it mean, the one who touches it? But Yiyah Eich Sheyiyah, you could look at the Sugya, the Parah Aduma is unique, that some people that get touched by the Parah Aduma become Tahar, and some people that get touched by the Parah Aduma become Tameh, and the Gemara says, who could do that? Haloi Echad, only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the question is, what is this Pella of Tahar Mitameh? Why does it say Haloi Echad? Why does it say Haloi Hashem? What does it have to do with the fact that Hashem is one? So, it's very, very difficult. It's very difficult to leave Purim. Purim is such an unbelievable chizuk, and every pasuk in the Megillah shines such a light on us and our neshamas that it's very, very, it's with tremendous hesitation that I walk away from the Megillah Esther. So I want to ask one more diuk. Like Esther Amalka asked for one more day. I want to do one more diuk in the Megillah. I want to talk about the Megillah oid pa'am echos, one more time. Let's talk about the Megillah and see how it leads us into this week's Parsha. V'nahapoichu. And it became turned around. The exact opposite. The hepech, the exact opposite. Asher yishletu ha-Yehudim. That the Jews were shoyleit, they dominated. Hema they b'saineim, in their enemies. What? Why doesn't it just say simply? V'nahapoichu asher yishletu ha-Yehudim b'saineim. Asher yishletu ha-Yehudim hema b'saineim. What is that hema? Very obvious question in the pasuk. How many times did you sing those words on Purim? Did you have this kasha? What's the hema? What's hema b'saineim? And speaking of one more day, Esther Amalka comes to Achashverosh, and he tells her, what would you like? And she says, Yinosein gam machar la Yehudim la'asais kedas hayoim. Give us tomorrow as well. Such a fascinating thing. Like, they killed whoever they killed. What do you want? Another day. Tomorrow also. What is she asking for tomorrow? What is this thing? B'chlal, this whole concept of Shushan Purim. What is this concept? What is this Yinasein Gam Machar? The truth is that Machar is a very Amalek word. When Moshe Rabbeinu was mitzvah Yeshua to fight against Amalek, he said, "Bechar lanu anashim v'tzehi lachem ba'Amalek machar anoichi nitzav." Tomorrow I'm going to be standing there with the Mata Elokim. Machar. Tomorrow. Don't fight today. Fight tomorrow. And if you think that that's okay, fine, I hear what you're saying, but that doesn't mean that Amalek is specially to the concept of Machar. I'll call your attention. We didn't get there yet during Night Seder, but later on in Sefer Shmuel, David HaMelech has a fight with Amalek. He gets into a war with some Amalekim. And it says that he chased them ad ha'eref limacharasam, to their tomorrow. What's their tomorrow? Tomorrow is tomorrow for everyone. Says Rashi, Amalek has a thing with Machar. It's their tomorrow because Moshe Rabbeinu said tomorrow. David HaMelech waited till tomorrow. There's something about destroying Amalek tomorrow. Do you know why? Because tomorrow could mean tomorrow, but also Yesh Machar Shehu La'achar Zman. Tomorrow also could mean in the next era, when the time comes. And Moshe Rabbeinu was being meramez when he said Machar, that the ultimate war with Amalek is going to happen in the end of times, B'yom Machar, before the HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself, U'mala ha'aretz deyo es Hashem. And that's what I believe, Simcha, that's what I believe is the pshat in Yinasein Gam Machar La Yehudim. Give Machar to the Jews. Allow us to be matzliach with that ultimate fight against Amalek. You want to know why? Why does Esther feel like she has to be mechazek, machar? Because I'm going to tell you something unbelievable about the chutzpah of Haman and Amalek. Haman thinks that it's possible, if he tries hard enough, that we won't exist, b'yom machar. He will. He thinks that the fight of good versus evil is an equal fight. And either good will win and will dominate the entire future of the world, or evil will win. It's an even fight. There's good and there's evil. They're equal, right? And Haman has the chutzpah to tell his wife and his ayavim, he tells them when he's boasting about all the great things happening to him, he says, V'gam lemachar ani karu im HaMelech. In the Megillah. Eli, you remember that? V'gam lemachar. And also lemachar I'm being called with the king. What does he say? What's v'gam lemachar? V'gam ani karu. No, Haman is saying, Mordechai's not going to be there in the end. You know, who did Esther call to be with Achashverosh? Me. You know what that's Baram is? That gam lemachar, when machar comes, you know I'm an Amaleki. We're a machar people. Gam lemachar, it's going to be me and the Melech. So Esther Hamalka tells Achashverosh, no, Yinasein gam machar la Yehudim. No, machar does not belong to Amalek. Machar belongs to the Yehudim. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because evil, as something that we've discussed in this Mishmar several times, evil is a construct. It doesn't really exist. Evil is a perception that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put into this world. It's not real. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is kuloi tov. Hashem be'etzem is completely good. It's not an even fight, good versus evil. It may feel that way. It may seem that way in this world. But when the day comes, V'haya Hashem lemelech al kol haaretz, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu truly reveals Himself, evil will vanish by the light of the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There is no Ra in front of Hashem. Let me give you a mashal, and I spoke this out partially. I knew that I wasn't saying it clearly when I spoke by the retreat, by Shalosh Shodis, about this Nekuda, but I said it beremez. I figured I'll fill in the blanks another time. So let me fill in a little bit now. There's something called the Shar Hanun, the 50th gate. Okay, if you need to know more about this, you can ask Simcha afterwards. Okay? There's something called the Shar Hanun. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world with 50 gates. 49 of those gates are accessible, depending on a person's madrega. But the 50th gate, that's only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You know why? Because the 50th gate represents HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, the source of the whole Bria. And when there's HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's nothing else, just HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But as I explained, Haman thought that he belongs there. L'machar ani karu im HaMelech. So how did Haman want to destroy Mordechai? Yasu eitz gavaya chamishim amma. Because he was hinting, no. L'machar ani karu im HaMelech. The 50 sha'arim, and I didn't make this up, the Sfas Emes says this, Yasu eitz gavaya chamishim amma ad shar hanun. But that was his downfall. Amalek can't exist in that shar. That's a shar where it's revealed HaKadosh Baruch Hu's true midah. There's no makayim for ra there. Amalek killed himself. As soon as he announced that he's fighting in the shar Hanun, he sealed his own fate. Vayomer hamelech tluhu olav. Hang him on that. Hang him on that. V'nahapoichu. It was switched around. Asher yishletu ha-Yehudim. That the Yehudim were shoyleit. Hema b'soineim. What's the gematria of Hema? 50. That's the Gra says. The Gra in the Megillah says Hema, the Chamishim. Hema b'soineim. Once you start up with our lemachar, you start up with that Shar Hanun, you're done, my friend. Hema b'soineim. Everything gets switched around. You assured your own assassination. Vayomer hamelech tluhu olav. V'nahapoichu. Asher yishletu ha-Yehudim hema b'saineim. There cannot be, by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's one midah. There cannot be a Haman or an Amalek by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem is one. And that one is Kulei Tov. And as long as the facade of the world exists, that other things could exist besides for the midah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so evil could try to prance around and make believe it owns the place. But as soon as HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself, his true midah, evil vanishes. And that's the destruction of Amalek. That's the destruction of Haman. The Parah Aduma is there to be mechaper for the chait of Adam HaRishon. That sounds like a dramatic statement. Think about it for a minute, you'll realize it's not. When Adam HaRishon did his chait, that's why we die, isn't it? Isn't that why we die? Because of Adam HaRishon's chait? And isn't the Parah Aduma here to cleanse us from the tumah of being exposed to death? So doesn't it follow that the Parah Aduma is here to purify from the effects of the chait of Adam HaRishon? Doesn't that follow? And if that is true, the point is that Adam, what did Adam do when he did the chait? He mixed in evil. Right? Remember the Ramban? We've spoken out several times that when Adam HaRishon did the chait, I spoke about this that Shabbos also. His guf used to be kulei tov. You remember, Eli? We used to talk about that the guf was a perfect malbush for the neshama. But when Adam did a chait, he created pirud. From one, he created two. The kapara, the tahara. Oh, you became tamei because you were in contact with that misa. You need something that draws its koyach from something that's higher than the possibility of ra. The Parah Aduma is something that could create tumah and tahara from the same source. How could both good and evil come from the same source? How could tamei and tahar both come from the same source? You know why? Because the reality is that it's all from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The reality is that everything that's ra, tamei, difficult, and so on, is all a construct. I mean, we treat tumah very seriously because that's our avodah in this world. But in essence, b'teva, really, it is all part of the purity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and part of his plan. Mi'itein tahar mitamei. Who could make tahar come out of tamei? Haloi echad. Only the one who's echad. That tahar and tamei are the same. Tahar and tamei are both part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's goodness. So, you finished Parshas Zachar last Shabbos. You just had Purim. You discovered that the defeat of Amalek is to recognize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is kulei tov. Oh, time for Parshas Parah. That's how you could purify yourself from Tumas Misa. But it goes even a step further, and it goes, and according to the mahalach, the chizuk, that we come here every Thursday night to learn Torah. But we also come here to get ready for Shabbos. And we also come here together as B'nai Torah to heal together and to grow and to be inspired and to be mechazik each other. And it's so important to know that Parshas Parah tells us not just that there is a place that's kulei tov, that there's no possibility of ra, but that HaKadosh Baruch Hu placed a part of that inside every one of us. That inside every single year, despite the fact that we are descendants of Adam who did a chet, despite the fact that we're split, as the Mesilas Yesharim says, b'mulchama chazaka, we're in a difficult war between the forces of Tov and the forces of Ra, between the Yetzer HaTov and the Yetzer HaRa. Know this, that there is inside of you, at the core of your being, there is a haloi echad, there is a part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows no sin. It can't do a chet. It has no bechira, it has no willingness or interest in chet. It is purely good. And on Parshas Parah, when we learn about a power to transcend Misa, by recognizing that all the Ra is a construct, and that by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's only Tov, that we have the ability to touch that place within ourselves as well. It's Parshas Parah. We have the ability to touch that place inside of us as well. And what a chizuk it is for us to touch that place. To remind ourselves that there's a place inside of us. Neshama shenosata bi tahirahi. Leiv tahar birali elikim. There's a place of absolute purity inside of me. Sometimes we feel so knocked down. Sometimes we feel so lost. Sometimes we feel so alone that we almost feel like the forces of Ra inside of us are taking over and winning. And we have to know it's not a war that he can win. You know, I'm always struck from the Mitzayra. The Mitzayra, the Tzara spreads in the body of the Mitzayra. And if it spreads to half his body, it's tameh. And if it spreads to 3/4 of his body, he's tameh. And if it goes on to 90% of his body, he's tameh. 95% of his body, he's tameh. 99% of his body, he's tameh. But if it becomes 100% of his body, he's tahar. You know why? Because Ra can't take over completely. So if you saw it take over completely, it's not Ra. It's not Tzaras. No, isn't that what it says? It can't be Tzaras if it took over the whole person. Because there's a makom in a person that the Ra cannot touch. It doesn't have rishus to touch. It doesn't have the haloi echad. It's the oneness of Hashem. It's the essence of Hashem himself. And we all have that part of us. We all have that chelik within us, that purity, that absolute purity inside of us. And that's what gives us a seat by the table. And that's why never, ever are we pushed away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Never, ever, it's fine. Never, ever can we give up. Never, ever can we be miyayish or think that we're completely lost. Because that part of us never, ever leaves. And I'll end with this. We're heading towards Pesach, Rabbi Isai. Pesach is the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Yetzias Mitzrayim is our first Geula. And people will say that Yetzias Mitzrayim, we came out of Mitzrayim, we became Geulim. And even though we're not Geulim today, because we're in Galus, but we commemorate that Geula. It's not true. It's not true. Because you guys just davened Ma'ariv a few minutes ago. And you know, you said, Hamake be'evrasei kol b'choyrei Mitzrayim, Vayoytze es Ama Yisrael mitoichem lecherus oilam. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out for an everlasting cherus. What's the cherus oilam if we're here in Galus? You know what the cherus oilam is? That HaKadosh Baruch Hu put a chelik of our neshama inside of us that cannot be enslaved. That even when we're in Galus, it can't be enslaved. In fact, sometimes when we're in Galus, that part of us shines brighter than ever. Yes, when we came out of Mitzrayim, we were Nigal, and now we're back in Galus, but we are still a free spirit. We still have a kayach of cherus inside of us, and that's the lead up. Parshas Zachar, Purim, Parshas Parah. We'll talk about Parshas Achodesh maybe when it's closer, and the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should give us the koyach to be able to never, ever, ever give up on our own kedusha. Like they say, Yiyosh Shaloi Midas. Yiyosh is without das. To never ever give up, to never ever think that we're completely enveloped by the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara could take a nice chunk out of us, but he cannot knock us down for good. In the end of the day, maybe Haman thinks L'machar ani karu im hamelech, but we know Yinosein gam machar la Yehudim. We know that it's the good part of us, it's the Yetzer Tov that exists behind machar. And Hashem should give us the strength to be able to see that Tov within us, and by believing in it and seeing it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should give us that unbelievable bracha that it should spread and encompass every single part of us. Because Tumah can't take over 100%, but Tahara can't take over 100%. Yashakaya.